Well, the facts don't care about your theology and don't have any sympathy for your wanting to cling to it. When your theology comes into direct and irrefutable conflict with objective reality, it is best to reconsider your theology. Tackling difficult, uncomfortable questions is better than putting our heads in the sand, else we wind up clinging to indefensible positions and damaging the credibility of the church. I think that many young earth creationists cling to their views because they are afraid that an old earth and evolution would challenge their theology. Doug Wilson seems to be a great example. He is featured in this video where he responds to the question, are you really a young earth creationist? Let's roll it.
Doug, somebody writes in to ask this question, this very pointed question. Are you really a young earth creationist?
So, yes.
There we go.
Moving on.
Then there is some banter, and then Doug goes on to explain that he takes early Genesis literally.
Well, actually, it's revealed as being done in 6 days, and basically, it's a math problem. It's a basic math problem, and I think because we're told the ages, we're given a chronology of so and so was this age when this son was born. So even if you have gaps in the genealogy, where a grandfather is reckoned, even if you had something like that, it doesn't alter the math.
Okay.
And so humanity is it's a young humanity.
Yeah.
Now, what is more likely, that the genealogies contain symbolic numbers and serve non-literal purposes, or that the entirety of modern science is in error? But why is he so wedded to this literal approach? He tells us right now. It's because he thinks the New Testament hinges on this interpretation.
The gospel rides on it, the gospel rides on humanity being young.
Well, no. From 1 Corinthians 15, Christ died for our sins. He was buried. He was raised on the third day. He made appearances. No reliance on the accuracy of ancient science there.
Because without a literal historical Adam, we have no doctrinal foundation for the work of the last Adam.
He's referring to Romans 5. I'm exploring that passage in what will hopefully be a 3-part series. I've released the first 2 parts already. I'll just say here that whether humanity is 6,000 years old or much older, and whether or not there was a literal Adam, we have a sin problem, and Christ came to solve it.
And we have no need for the work of the last Adam, because you've started to monkey with the doctrine of sin.
Death doesn't apparently come from sin.
Death doesn't come from sin, and there are a host of problems.
Well, spiritual death does come from sin. I don't have time to respond to all the problems he is alluding to. I'll just say that yes, I think evolution raises some legitimate questions, but the fact that science raises problems for your theology is not a reason to reject the science.
And the reason there are a host of problems with old earth creation, but not as many as with theistic evolution.
Okay.
The farther out you go, atheistic evolution is incoherent. Theistic evolution makes the whole thing work in terms of power and design, but it brings into question our theodicy, our understanding of who God is.
He is talking about how can God be good in light of the existence of evil? Well, young earthers have their challenges here too. For example, was the fall inevitable? If yes, why did God make us like he did, knowing we were bound to fall? If no, why didn't he make 2 different people to start with, people who wouldn't rebel?
Because if God used evolution to create as his instrument of creation, then that means death is not an enemy.
Yeah.
Death is the thing that produced Adam.
Well, yes, death produced Adam, and it may make you uncomfortable, but it is not up to us to sit and judge God for not doing it the way we think he should have done it. Better to accept what he did and say I'm not sure why, than to deny what is plain truth.
Okay.
So you have to look at tens of millions of years and of nature red in tooth and claw. You have to look at millions of years of dinosaurs falling into tar pits, sentient animals with central nervous systems experiencing millions of years of excruciating pain as they hunt and die and disease and all of that, because the fossil graveyards are graveyards, right?
As I believe Os Guinness said, Christianity is fine with mystery, but not with absurdity. We hold to faith in the midst of mystery. It seems that young earth creationists may hold to faith in the midst of absurdity and claim that as strong faith. It seems that some hold on to absurdity in order to hold on to their faith. Now he gets to his point.
So what you have to do is you have to have God looking down on that and saying, behold, it is very good.
Right.
So now death's not an enemy. So what did Jesus come to do?
Well, Jesus didn't come to have us live forever on this earth. He came so we may live forever with him in eternity. We were made for heaven.
And if death is not an enemy, then are we going to be allowed to torture puppies in heaven?
Right.
Right. Right. Now that might seem like an odd question.
Yeah.
But why not get
It follows.
If it follows,
Yeah.
if this is good, if God says this form of creating is very good, if he likes it, then why wouldn't he continue to like it?
Very good means it suited God's purposes. It doesn't mean perfect. And even given a literal interpretation in Genesis 1, God told us to subdue the earth, and that involves suffering at some level. As for torturing puppies in heaven, look, death is an enemy, and it was overcome by Jesus. Just because God chose to allow something on earth doesn't mean it should have a place in heaven. And marriage is good, and it has no place in heaven. His argument here is shallow.
Yeah.
Right. And so in the old earth, in theistic evolution, death produces Adam. Okay. In young earth creationism, a straightforward reading of the account, Adam produces death. So Adam is the one who introduced death by his disobedience.
Well, that's not right, because we were made mortal, else why the need for the tree of life?
In theistic evolution, death is the good instrument that God used to bring about the creation. And all of a sudden, all sorts of other doctrines are out of joint.
Again, his thinking seems to be that the earth must be young because otherwise he'd have to reconsider his theology. Well, the facts don't care about your theology and don't have any sympathy for your wanting to cling to it. If plain facts say the earth is old and evolution happens, then test your theology against that reality. You may well be surprised to learn that you don't have to change your theology, you just have to correct some interpretational errors you have made. Or maybe some aspects of your theology will have to change, but avoiding that process doesn't help anyone.
I think there's another thing in this question. I mean, the way it's phrased, the word really, are you really a young earth creationist?
Right.
There's a little bit, well, it's not a little bit, there's a whole lot of, whenever you hit this subject, there's a whole lot of, you can't be serious.
Right.
Like you can't possibly be so backwards as to hold something like that. I mean, why is it important for us to not get fazed by that sort of maneuver? Because I think it happens all the time.
Well, it's been said it is easier to be a flat earther than a young earther in some respects. So yes, you need to address why you are a young earther. The question does imply that you are not being rational. How do you respond?
Yeah, because truth, theological truth, is not attained by responding to the cool shame. Neither is scientific truth accomplished by responding to the cool shame. You seem educated. You seem like you've been to school. You seem like you've got a head on your shoulders. Are you really a young earth creationist? You bozo. And that sort of thing, every theologian and every pastor, every Christian worth his salt should have that kind of backslap just bounce off him.
Yeah.
We should absolutely not care.
So he doesn't address the issue. He dodges it because he has to, really. So he says, hey, you're just trying to shame me, and I'm virtuous by ignoring your question. He's avoiding the issue. I suspect what's going on is that Doug may be doing what most humans do a lot of the time. He may be choosing what he wants to believe based on what is convenient, and then uses his intellect to find ways to justify it to himself. If so, he's just being human.
So whatever the Bible teaches, that's what I go with.
So this is the point. He needs to reconsider whether the Bible really teaches a young earth, but he won't. He hurries away from here.
Now, the young earth creation has this advantage. It's got the same advantage that Calvinism does. And that is, it presents you with a God who is an in-your-face God. He's right here.
YEC can have all the advantages in the world, but that shouldn't cause us to adopt it. If it is false, no matter how convenient you think it is. We should care about the truth, not the supposed beauty of the theology.
If we put God's activity aeons in the distant past, we can kind of forget that he did it. We can sort of conduct our own business, conduct our own affairs.
He's more of a sentiment.
Yeah, and it's a quasi-deism. All right, let's get God out of the picture, or at least get him to stand at the back of the stage. We acknowledge him, sort of.
I don't see much strength in his point here at all. I see God's creation here today, and I marvel at it. And the charge of deism, I mean, because God has acted over a long time, it means God has not been involved? That's incoherent, I'm sorry. And let's get God out of the picture? We're just recognizing how he has created. I mean, really?
But young earth creation, the fundamentalists and the Calvinists and the young earth creationists have this going for them. God is here. God, we have to deal with him. He made that tree.
Again, this is incoherent to me. God is here today, living in us and among us, whether he created 6,000 years ago or over the course of billions of years. And about that tree, God made it using natural processes, Doug.